I'm here to talk to you this morning regarding the two new modules that we're implementing starting tomorrow called Time and Labor and Absence Management. Together they're known as TLAB. What we're going to do, because we are recording this, is I'm going to talk about the business process changes, and then I will do demos. I'm going to ask that you hold questions so that we can keep it flowing with the process changes, the demo, and then I'll ask if there's questions so that we can kind of keep it all in one section to have it flow better for folks rather than jumping around back and forth to questions and stuff. So I'm going to start right in with the absence management portion. So the first thing I would like to talk about before I start the demo are some of the process changes that will be going on with the absence management module, different from what we currently do. So one of the business process changes is, I don't know how many folks go on a regular basis into the HR system to view their paychecks. But if you do view your paychecks in the system, which is great, there is a small box currently on the paycheck that does have leave balance information in it. After we're live with TLAB and after the March 31st pay period end date payroll, which is the April 13th payday, after that payroll is done and complete, checks from that point onward, April 30th onward, are no longer going to show the leave balance boxes on the checks. There are still other ways, which I will walk through, where employees will be able to view their leave balances, but the box on the paycheck will no longer be there. So that's one of the changes that will be occurring. Another change that is going to be occurring is that overtime and comp time for your benefited employees who are non-exempt. So I'm talking benefited folks right now that either earn overtime or they bank up comp time. Those employees, if you have those situations occurring, you have to send a time slip to our HR payroll office for the entry of the overtime or to bank up that comp time. That is a business process change. The higher ed time entry screen will be no longer available to enter benefited overtime or comp time on. And so we are going to be temporarily, at least, but for the foreseeable future anyway, having overtime and comp time for your benefited employees when they're either earned overtime that is paid out or banking up comp time to use at a later date. Those have to come to our office on a time slip. We are revamping our time slip. It should be out on our website, on our forms page for HR payroll by the end of the day today. So we'd like you to use that time slip when you're sending the overtime or comp time to our office. The comp time, when it is being used, I will demonstrate in the system how the employee uses the comp time by using the absence management module. But the banking up of the comp time does have to be done by our office for you. So that is another business process change. A third change would be any late leave cards would no longer need to be sent to our office. This process of absence management allows the employee, if they would forget to submit their leave request and the payroll confirms, they would just go in after that payroll is done confirming whenever they think of it, and they would submit their leave request, changing the date to be whatever the date of the leave was, even if that payroll is done. And then it would just apply then to the next applicable payday. So that, again, that's one of the ways that we're getting around needing to have late leave cards come to our office for entry. If the payroll gets missed, the employee just goes in, corrects, submits the leave on the correct date, and then it comes on the next applicable payroll. Another process change is negative leave. I'll show you as we do the demo again that the leave balances appear right on the employee's screen when they are submitting a leave request, and I'll show you where that is. So it's going to be very hard for employees to say that they didn't know what their leave balance was when they submitted a leave request, because it's going to be right there for them to view. So in addition, when the supervisor goes in to approve that leave request, the leave balance is right there for that supervisor to view as well. So they can see, both the employee and the supervisor are going to know what the leave balances are. And so for employees that may be running right on the edge and they are going negative in their leave, what we're going to have happen is we would like that conversation to happen between the employee and the supervisor. If the supervisor is saying we are not going to allow negative leave, they would deny the request, and then you would do a change form 101 to put the employee on unpaid leave of absence for whatever that leave time is. There are certainly departments that are not comfortable with negative leave, and they would go that route. If, however, the employee and the supervisor have that conversation and it's not very many hours and stuff like that, and you're going to allow a temporarily for that employee to go negative on their annual or sick leave, you can certainly do that, but we would request that before you approve that leave that you get from Noah Fisher in our office the negative leave template. And that template should be signed by both the employee and the supervisor and then sent to the HR office so that everybody's on the same page with, yep, we're allowing you to go negative, but if you go negative and then you term employment, we need to have that on file so that we have permission to deduct whatever that employee is negative from their last check. That's the importance of having that template on file. If you allow them to go negative and then they term and they haven't gotten out of the hole yet, if we don't have the agreement, we can't deduct that from their last check, and then the employee has been paid out and earned more than what they should have. So that's the importance of that negative leave template. And the last thing to be aware of for a business process change is employees who term employment, they resign, they retire for whatever reason, when they're no longer going to be employed at NDSU, our current process is they get their last paycheck, and then the pay period after that is when they get their annual or sick leave payout, if the sick leave is applicable. Right now, when we go to TLAB, that will change, and both the last check and the leave payout are going to happen on the last check. There will no longer be a check after where the leave payout happens. So that is going to be great for a convenience factor for the employee that is termed. They don't have to wait an additional pay period. But if the employee was not very speedy about getting their leave requests in before they termed, or the supervisor is not being very speedy about approving those leave requests, then the leave is going to pay out with an incorrect amount, and we don't want that to happen. So part of the separation process that you'll want to start going forward is making sure that when you do have employees that earn leave, when they are terming, that you touch base with them to make sure that they've submitted all their leave requests online, and touch base with that supervisor to make sure the supervisor has approved all those leave requests. Because again, if that last check and that leave payout run without those being submitted and being approved, the incorrect amount is going to be paying out for those employees, and we don't want that. That is the business process changes. Are there questions on those business process changes before I get into the demo?
How will we send those time slips to HR? Is it possible to scan and email them?
Absolutely. You can scan and email them, or you can send them through the mail. Please don't do both, because then we might accidentally enter one twice because of the volume that we get. So if you want to scan them, that is awesome. If you want to send them via mail, that is fine too. Just whichever one is most convenient for you, just do one. Other questions on the business process changes I just talked about before I get into the demo? Okay, I'm going to start with the demo. Okay. Can people see my computer now? Did HRMS come up for everybody? I hope. I'm going to say yes. Okay. So I am logged in right now as an employee. Starting on Monday, when your benefited leave accruing employees log into the system, under the employee self-service pagelet, there will be a new link there, and the new link will be called absence request. This is the link that employees will go to put in their leave. I talk about absence request and I say request quite a lot as I'm doing this training, but I want to be clear, this shouldn't necessarily be what replaces the employee having a conversation with their supervisor about taking time off or having leave. This is really, think of this screen as the little leave card. This is the part that you're turning in when you've taken the leave or those kinds of things. It's not necessarily meant to take the place of asking your supervisor, hey, can I take annual leave the week of the 4th of July? I know my supervisor would not appreciate if I was just putting in requests in the system without talking to her first about that. You certainly can use this as the request process if you choose to, and the supervisor and the employee are comfortable with that being the case. But by and large, I would say this is more of, think of this as being the leave card that you turn in after you've gotten back from the leave that you're now here. I took this leave and now it's in the system, not necessarily the permission to be out. So keep that in mind as you're doing this. So I do talk about it being a request because it's the request screen, but you may want to touch base with the supervisor before that, particularly for planned absences, of course. So I'm going to go into the absence request link. And you can see here it brings up the absence request page. And it starts out with just a couple of fields. It has a start date and the absence name. So what you can do here, this is how, as I said, that you don't have to do sending late leave cards to our office any longer. If the payroll has passed where the employee took the leave and they just accidentally forgot to submit it or whatever the situation was, they would just change this date to be the applicable date when they took the leave. So that's how you don't have to send anything negative to our office. The employee just makes it to be the correct date. The only caveat I have with that is while we are transitioning right now, if somebody forgets to turn in their March leave and it doesn't make it on the April 13th payday, they can't go in and do a March request because we weren't live with TLAB in March yet. So this would be applicable. So if you do end up getting a late March leave card after we've confirmed the March 31st payroll, those do have to come to our office. But if we're into June and someone says, oh shoot, I forgot to turn in my May leave card, that is something they could change the date to be a May date and then move that forward, et cetera, et cetera. So I hope that is clear to everybody. It's just the only time we won't be able to do that is if there's late March leave cards that don't get entered. Those will still have to come to our office. So I'm going to pick a start date for the leave. I'm going to go into April here. And I'm going to say that on April 24th, I will first demo the very basic of a leave request, and then I will get into some more complex ones. So this is the most basic of a leave request. I'm just going to do one full day of leave. So you select the day of the leave, and then you select the absence name. And you can see here when you do the drop down, it brings up all the applicable absences that the employee can choose for their absence. So they can take annual leave, comp time, dependent sick, funeral leave, jury duty, military leave, or sick leave. This is where the comp time, if they're using their comp time that they've sent to our office to bank up, this is where that comp time can be used. So again, the employee uses the comp time through the absence management module, but banking it up has to come to our office for the entry first. If the employee is an exempt level employee and is not eligible for comp time is not going to appear on that employee's drop down. I am going to say that this employee is going to use annual leave. So when you select the absence name, you'll note the screen opened up a little more. Now there's a start and an end date. There's an end date field. And now you can see when I selected annual leave for the balance name, the current balance for that employee's annual leave is right there on the screen. That's the balance as of whatever the most current payroll is that was confirmed, okay? So for this one, we've confirmed the March 31st payroll. So that would be the applicable balance. When you're looking at this, if you look at this after you're live, it's whatever the most recent payday is, okay? So again, it's going to be very hard for employees to say, I didn't know what my balance was. I didn't know I was going to be going negative when I submitted my request, because the balance is going to be right there for the employee to see. Again, I'm doing the very basic leave request first, so I'm not going to do anything with this partial day field right now. This is going to be a full day of leave. It's just going to be 1 day of leave, so the start and the end date of the leave is going to be on April 24th. And I'm going to click the Calculate Duration button. And you can see here the duration of the leave, it says 8 hours. This is the reason why I sent that schedule email out earlier this week asking departments to notify us of any employees that have a different schedule other than an 8-hour day Monday through Friday. Because we want the system, if the person works 4 10s, we want the system when they submit their full day of leave request to calculate it at a 10-hour day. So that's the reasoning why we need to know those schedules. And if they work, their schedule rotates, so they are occasionally required to work on a Saturday or a Sunday, we need to set up the system schedule for that particular employee so that if they put in a sick leave request because they were sick on a Saturday, they were scheduled to work, that it accepts that sick leave request. Right now the system defaults everybody to a Monday through Friday 8-hour day schedule. It doesn't matter when those 8 hours fall within the day, but it assumes everybody works Monday through Friday 8 hours. So that's why folks that don't work Monday through Friday 8 hours, we need to know that so we can make sure the system's set up so it calculates their durations correctly for their days off. So that's the background on why that email came out. So those are the only fields that are required to be filled out on this screen when an employee is doing a leave request, are just these fields up at the top here. The start and end time fields, they are optional. You can put in a start and end time for your leave request, but it will not go towards calculating the hours. This is just an optional field. If you would like for yourself, or you would like your supervisor to see the hours that you're requesting off, that's great. But it is not required and will not do anything towards calculating. The same for the comments field. The comments field, you can either for your own information or for your supervisor's information, you can put in a comment here, but it is not required. Some examples of why you might put in a comment. I often, when I'm looking back at my leave cards, I forget why I submitted a leave for a particular day. I don't remember why I had submitted an 8-hour day or a sick leave, something or other, a couple pay periods pass and then my mind is gone. And so what I normally do now on my little paper leave card is I write a little note to myself saying I was gone for a track meet for that day, so that when I get my little yellow slip back after it's been entered and I file it for myself, then I can look back and I can see why I wanted that time off or why I took that day or whatever it was. So that might be something, if you all do that too, that might be something you're putting in a comment there so that when you look back at your requests later, you can remember why you had done that day or, taken that time or whatever. But again, it is not required that you put anything in here in this comments. I'm going to put a comment in so you can see where it appears when you look back at it. But it isn't required. So I am going to say that this is for a track meet. My son is in track and the track season is now, so I use track meet as an excuse all sorts of times. So, okay. So again, this is the most basic request for one full day of leave. I've calculated it and it's an 8-hour day, and I decided I wanted to put a comment in here. And then I'm going to click the submit button. And it says, are you sure you want to submit the absence request? And then I will say yes. And it says the absence request was successfully submitted. And I click OK. And now it brings me back kind of to this screen, and now it's not able for me to edit it any longer. This request has been submitted. And I can see here that it is pending. And it is pending for 2 levels of approvers. The system automatically set it up so that there are 2 approvers on every request. It is the direct supervisor that is set up in HRMS. So whatever position number that this employee reports to is the first level, and then that person's supervisor is the next level. So that in any situation, if one of those people happens to be out, there is another person that is automatically on the reporting line here that can go in and approve these requests. So if I will talk about how to delegate later on when we talk about the supervisor part, but that is how the system is designed, is it automatically has the direct supervisor, and then the next supervisor above that person are the two people that can approve the request. Only one of them needs to, not both of them. And they do not get emails, which I'll talk about again when I talk about the supervisor side of it. But that's how the system is designed right now. Now I'm going to do a demo for a little more complex leave request. So instead of navigating all the way back to the home screen, I just clicked the absence request up at the top here, and it brought me to this back to this same screen again. Okay. So now I'm going to do a request. I'll go in April again, and I'm going to have the start date be the 25th. And again, I'm going to pick annual leave. Okay, so what happens then if I was only gone for a part day? I'm taking sick leave and it only ended up being 2 hours. I'm taking annual leave, it was just for a couple of hours. So I don't want the system to calculate a full day for me. I want it to calculate just a partial amount of time. That is when you use this partial days drop down. And I'll go through each one of these drop downs and give an example, okay? So if all of the days are a partial day, meaning, and this is just a one-day thing, if all of the days are partial, that's the all days field. So if I was only gone for 2 hours for one day, I put in all of the days and I calculate, and here's my 2 hours of leave that I need for April 25th, okay? If I'm using a range of dates, April 25th to April 28th, which is a Tuesday through a Friday, and I say all of the days are partial, that means I took 2 hours every single one of those days in that date range. I don't know how often that would be applicable for people where it's a date range and it's exactly that same amount of hours for all of those ranges, but it's certainly there for you to use. If I calculate that, then since that's 4 days here, and I'm saying 2 hours of each of those days I was gone, then it's taking 8 hours from my annual leave balance. Okay? Okay. If the end day only is my partial day, that means the 25th, 26th, and 27th are full days. And on the end day, I have a partial day. So maybe I was off on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday all day long. And then on Friday, I came in at noon. So I need 4 hours of leave because my schedule, I work 8 to 5. So I need 4 hours of leave for the morning before I came in. Okay? So then I'm doing 4 hours. My end day partial hours are this. And then when I calculate it, it calculates the 3 full days, which is 24 hours, and then the partial day of 4 hours for a total of 28 hours for this date range that I have put up front here. I would encourage you to go in and kind of play with this partial day and the calculating for doing time off. There is no reason why you can't go in and play around and calculate as many times as you would like to get comfortable with how this works. As long as you don't hit the submit button, it's not going anywhere. So I'm encouraging all employees as I do this training to play around with these fields after we're live a little bit and make sure that when you're using the partial day calculation and you're doing date ranges and things like that, that you are coming up with the number of hours that you think it should if you were filling out a paper leave card. So now I'm going to use, if my partial day is on my start day, again using this above date range, then I'm saying my start day was the partial day, but then the rest of the days in the range are full days of leave. So this would be, maybe this employee worked until 2 o'clock on the day before they were leaving. So then they need 3 hours of leave for the remaining hours. So then the start day needs 3 hours of leave, and the rest of the leave, the other 3 full days, are calculating, so that's 24 hours, plus the 3 partial is 27. And then the last one in the drop down for the partial days is if both the start and the end day are partial days. So the first day is, you need a couple of hours of leave, and then you've got some full days in the middle, and then the last day is a partial day of leave. Then that's where you do your start day partial, your end day partial, and then the middle ones are going to calculate it as full days. There's nothing that says you have to use the date ranges. If you're not getting it to come out to be the math you think it should be when you calculate it, you can do separate requests. It's just then the supervisor will have to approve each of those separate requests, but the approval process doesn't take a ton of time either. So if you're calculating and you're not coming up with the number of hours in this duration box that you think you should, if you're kind of coming and going and there's a lot of partial stuff in the middle, just do separate requests for each of the days if you're kind of coming and going within a date range or something like that. So the other thing I want to hit on is this, in addition to being able to go backdated for late leave, you can submit requests future dated. The caveat with that is if you go too far future dated and you've submitted the request and the supervisor approved the request and then your plans changed, it's in the system already ready to go for that future dated time. You have to send an email to HR payroll to have us change that leave request then. So again, if you've submitted it future dated and the supervisor has approved it for that future dated, the only way to change that request then, if your plans have changed, is to send something to HR payroll. So what the university system has suggested that we have you guys do in this training is to do your leave request right after you get back from your leave, so that you've made sure, maybe you thought your dentist appointment was going to take 4 hours and it only ended up taking 2 hours. So then right after you get back from the dentist appointment, submit the 2 hours of time, rather than doing the 4 hours ahead of time and needing to change it then. Maybe you thought you were going to take a full week of annual leave off and then your plans changed or the dates changed or something like that. So you ended up only taking 32 hours of leave because you had to work one of the days, or you got sick during one of the days that you were off, and so now you need 32 hours of annual leave and 8 hours of sick leave. Just do that right after you get back from the leave instead of doing it too far ahead of time. That way you're more sure of what the actual amount of time was that you were gone. We don't encourage people to wait a long time, and if there are extenuating circumstances where you're going to be out of the office for an extended time, work with us on the best way to get that in the system. But what I'm talking about here are the traditional, time off requests for an occasional sick leave, occasional annual leave, a week worth of time. Do those right as you get back so that you're sure and your supervisor are sure of what those hours actually ended up being, rather than having to do corrections and go through our office for those. And then the last thing I want to show you on the demo is it will take into account holidays when you're doing leave requests. So I want to show I think I've already submitted one for the April Good Friday holiday, so I'm going to go into May here for the Memorial Day holiday. Memorial Day is May 29th. I'm going to have this employee take leave. They're going to be off on the 26th of May. So they're going to be off on Friday, and then that's the holiday. They're also going to be off on the 30th, on the Tuesday after. So the start day is the Friday, the end day is the Tuesday. I'm going to keep it as annual leave, and I'm going to say it's not a partial day. I'm going to pretend this person's taking the full day on Friday and the full day on Tuesday. When I calculate it, it only charges the 2 days of annual leave that that person needs. It doesn't charge them for the holiday day, which is what you want it to do. We don't want people to have to try to calculate for the holiday time or do anything like that. The system knows when the holidays are, and so the system will say we don't have to charge this person when we calculate. We don't have to have leave run for that employee's holiday day. So the other option, if the employee feels better about maybe putting in future dated requests but not submitting them yet, is the employee can always put in requests and save them for later rather than submitting them. And I'll show you what that screen looks like next. But if you save it for later, it just means you've put it into the system for yourself. You haven't submitted it and sent it to your supervisor to take any action on yet. This is just for you to have in the system, maybe to have an idea of time you want to have off. You don't have to do this step, but it is an option if you want to save your requests for later, but then when it comes time for you to actually have done that time, you do need to go ahead and take action on them, okay? I'm not going to save this request for later, but I will show you another one that I've previously done. Okay. Actually, I will. Why don't I just do that? I'll just save this one. So the absence request was successfully saved. The request must be submitted in order for it to be approved. And then I click the OK button. So now it's saved. It doesn't say it's submitted. And the status is saved here. Okay, the other two things that I want to show you before I open it for questions on the employee side are where to view your balances and where to view the requests that you have made and see what those statuses are. I'm going to go back to the home button so we can navigate. And in the manuals, there is an employee manual and a manager manual that are on our website. The employee manual is under the employee toolbox. The manager's manual is under the supervisor manager toolbox. Under main menu, self-service, time reporting, view time, and then there is the absence request history screen and the absence balances screen. What I would suggest for people, if they don't want to navigate to these every single time, is navigate to them once and then add to favorites, this button up here. When you add something to when you add a screen to your favorites, then the next time you log in and you're on your home page, you click the favorites button up at the top here, and then it just brings you this option to go directly to this screen. So you don't have to navigate every single time you want to go to it. If you have it in your favorites, you just go to your favorites and pull it up from the drop down. So the absence request history screen is just what it sounds like. For whatever date range is in here, it just says these are all the requests that this employee has submitted. I'm logged in as an employee right now. I want to see what I have submitted and what status those have. So here you can see this is the one I just saved. The status is saved, and you can see here that I can edit that request. So if I want to go in and edit this one now, I can go ahead and change the days. I can make it partial. I can do whatever because this request hasn't gone anywhere. It's just for me to take action on. That's what it means when you've saved it. If it's been approved, that means that that employee has submitted the request and the supervisor has also approved it. So that one is good to go for payroll. You can see it's a future dated one, so there's that little bit of risk there that if the plans have changed, now they have to notify HR payroll that something needs to change with that. But this one has gone all the way through and been approved. This is the annual leave that I just did that has just been submitted. The supervisor hasn't taken any action on it. It's just in the submitted status. And I'm going to go into that so you can see here, again, here's where that comments are, that when Sheila submitted this request, she put in a comment that this was a track meet so that when she's looking back at it later, she can remember why she took that time off. And then canceled means that if I go into this saved request and click the cancel button, meaning this request isn't something I want to have out there anymore, I'm not going to take this leave, that means you've canceled the request. So that, again, that request is not going anywhere anymore. You had saved it for later because you thought maybe something was going to happen with it, and then you canceled it out. It's not, nothing's happening. Okay? And then the last one that I want to show you on the employee side is the absence balances. Absence balances is just what it sounds like. It's showing as of the most applicable payroll that's been confirmed, this is the employee's balances. This is the snapshot of the comp time balance, the sick leave balance, and the annual leave balance. If you want to forecast, you can also do that. So if I want to know how much leave I'm going to have on December 31st, so that I know how much I need to take before that time, so because the use or lose will happen, then that's the screen that we go to now for this. So if I'm going to forecast out for December 31st, the annual leave balance, again, it's bringing up, here's what my current balance is as of the last payroll, and I click the forecast balance button. It does take a few moments to calculate, excuse me, and then it will forecast for me and tell me what my balance is going to be as of December 31st. It will take into account requests that have been made. So even if the payroll hasn't happened yet and there are future data requests in there that have been approved, it will factor those into this balance. If, however, the only thing it doesn't take into account is if the employee is stepping up to the next accrual rate sometime within this date range, it can only calculate the leave based on what the person is accruing their leave at right now. So if Sheila would happen to be stepping up to the next accrual rate in May, what she'd have to do is she'd have to go in May after she's stepped up and then do this forecasting, and then it will calculate it on her new higher step rate when it's doing this. So it only has the ability to calculate it on what the person's accruing their leave at right now. Okay, so I'm going to open it up for questions right now for anything that you might have a question on regarding the employee piece when they are submitting their leave requests or viewing their leave.
This is from Langdon. I have a question about a partial day.
Yes.
So entering the time was it didn't really affect the calculation. So say, for example, if I'm taking one partial day off, but I have to manually enter how many hours I took on that particular day. What if I just enter the time? Can the system calculate the hours on its own?
No. The start and end time fields, is that what you mean if you use the start and end time field instead of that partial day button? I'm not sure where.
Yes. I under the calculate the hours, that screen. So if you, additional information, that is start time and the end time.
Yep.
That's what I meant.
Yep, the start and end time, like I mentioned, they don't do anything for calculating. They're just for your information only. The only way you can get it to do the partial is by doing the partial day and entering the partial hours and then hitting calculate.
For a single partial day, that means whatever I'm going to enter, the calculation will take that into account.
Yes. Yep. When it's a partial day, you have to say how many hours of leave on that partial day you're taking. 2 hours, 4 hours, 3.5. Yep.
Another question from Langdon. If you're approved for FMLA, will that be in the drop-down menu, or do they still go to NOAA Fisher?
Well, you'd still do the paid time would still be done via the absence request screens, just like you would have done a leave card for those. When they get to the point where it is unpaid, yes, those still come on a 101 form because we have to enter those in the system. So unpaid FMLA cannot go through this process. That comes on the 101 to NOAA.
Okay, but right now, if it's paid time off on the annual leave card or on the leave card, we would choose dependent sick leave, and then I write FMLA, and NOAA asks me to submit those to him if it's FMLA. So that person would just choose dependent sick leave or sick leave if it was for FMLA. Like, we don't have to note anywhere that it's FMLA.
You could put in the comments that it's FMLA. They aren't going to our office, though. So if you've worked something out with NOAA, is it because they only have a couple of hours each pay period and then the rest of the time is unpaid?
Right now, it's all been paid hours, but he's asked me to submit the leave cards to him for any FMLA requests. So that's what I've been doing.
Okay, so yeah, then have the employee put FMLA here and then you'll have to let NOAA know that.
Okay, I'll do that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
One more question from Langdon. If I wanted to take some few hours on each day for 4 days, do I need to use separate requests, continuously?
Yeah, unless the hours are the same all of those days. If it's 2 hours every day within a range, that will work great. If it's going to be 2 hours one day and 3 hours the next and 4 the next, then you'll have to do each of those as separate requests, separate partial day requests.
Thank you.
Yes.
A question from Williston. We have an employee that is getting ready to take maternity leave, and they are going to do some intermittent unpaid leave. How would that work? Would that just be a Form 101 with just the days that they took off?
Yep, if it's intermittent, those still come on the Form 101.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
This is Cassian Hedinger. Right away when you started out, you talked about the overtime and comp time, and that was just for our benefited employees, correct?
Correct. The part-time employees that are non-benefited, your hourly temp employees, when they work, the system will automatically calculate the overtime for them if they're using the web clock or if you're manually entering it. You just enter it all as regular hours. The system will say after X amount, after 40 hours, it will automatically apply it to overtime. And they aren't eligible for comp time, those non-benefited folks. So,
Thank you.
yes. Any other questions on the employee side before I move on to the supervisor side? Okay, I'll move on. I'm going to sign out. And now I'm going to sign in as a supervisor. Okay, the supervisor also has a link on their homepage, so they do not have to navigate when they have absences that are required to be approved. They will have a pagelet a little further down called Time Management Alerts. And under the Time Management Alerts pagelet, if they have time or absences that need to be approved, they will have a hyperlink. If there's nothing needed to be done, then there would be no hyperlink. If there were no absences to approve here, there would not be a hyperlink for me to go into. So supervisors, as I mentioned earlier, don't get an email when they have time to approve. Reasoning for that, first of all, is because it's going to two different supervisors, the two levels that I talked about. And secondly, there could be a lot of employees submitting leave requests, and that could mean a lot of emails going to one particular or a couple of different supervisors, and that can fill up an inbox and be kind of a nuisance. So the idea was that they would not enable the email notifications for the supervisors to get any emails. The supervisors need to get in the habit at least once a pay period before the payroll runs to log into the system to approve any of their requests that they need to approve so that those reflect on the check. If the supervisor never logs in, the leave does not appear on the employee's check, and it doesn't deduct from their balances. So it's very important, but not only the employee is doing their part to put their request in, the supervisor has to do their part to approve the request, or it won't move on to the employee's payroll. We will be sending reminders to campus when the deadline days are coming. They will be slightly different days than what we have now for the higher ed time entry screen deadline days, but we will certainly be sending notices out when it is going to be time for, within X date range, supervisors at some point within that range need to be going in to approve the leave requests. So we will be sending notices out to people, so it won't be something that will sneak up on them if they would accidentally forget. But it should be a habit maybe that they put on their calendar or something, that on a certain day each pay period, a day or two after the pay period ends, to get in the habit of logging in to approve any requests. Certainly they can log in more often. You can approve the absence request as often as the supervisor would like to do, but for sure it should be done once a pay period before the payroll is scheduled to run. So I'm going to go into the absence approval link here, and it shows then all of the pending absences that the supervisor is required. I had only submitted just the one request. The other one I had done as a save for later. So you can see that one is not available for me as a supervisor to approve. So Sheila went in and she approved one annual leave request. It's for the date of April 24th. And I want to go in and take a look at this request. So I click on the link on Sheila's name, and it brings me up to this screen. The screen looks very similar to the screen that the employee saw after they hit submit. I can't edit this for her. If her plans have changed, we have to do something else for it. But here I can see her balance. So again, it's going to be very hard for me to say I didn't realize the employee was going to go in the hole when they submitted this request, because the balance that Sheila has is right here. If she'd put a start and end time, that would appear here, but she didn't. She left those fields blank. She did put comments. Remember, I put comments as track meet. So that's where I can also see the comment that Sheila put. Not just the employee can see it, but the supervisor can see it. If I would want to make a comment back to her, I certainly can, but it is not required. So the actions that can be taken on a leave request are denying a request, approving a request, or pushing the request back to the employee. Denying the request means you are saying no. I am denying this leave. It did not happen or is not going to happen. It makes the leave request go away. It is done. Approving the request means, yes, this request is fine. The hours look good. The balance is good. Life is great. Move it on and pay it on the applicable payroll if it's future dated. Approving means it's good to go. Pushing back is just that. You are pushing this request back to the employee level, and they can do something to edit it then when you pushed it back to them. Now, why might you push it back? What if they meant to select sick leave from the drop-down, but they accidentally submitted it as annual leave? That happens. We all click the wrong things when we're in a rush. So you could push this back to the employee, and then the employee, when it's pushed back, could edit it. What if the hours were wrong? Maybe Sheila ended up working 6 hours that day, and so now she only needs 2 hours of leave for the April 24th. She still needs annual leave for the day, but now it just needs to be partial. So I can push it back to the employee because I haven't approved it yet. The employee and I can still make those changes. if I'd approve this, and then Sheila would need to make a change, again, that would need to come to HR payroll. But while it's still pending at the supervisor level, you can push back to the employee, and the employee can make edits. So those are the different reasons: denying, approving, or pushing back. Whichever action you as the supervisor take to do on this request, the employee does get an email. So the email part does go the other direction. They will get a request, or they will get an email when any action is taken on this request saying action has been taken on your leave request. Please log into HRMS, blah, 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 blah. And then the employee will be invited then to go ahead and they can log in, and then they can see what action was taken, if it was approved, if it had been pushed back, or if it was denied. So again, the supervisor doesn't get emails when they have things that are going on, but since it's just one email going back to the employee does get notification when the action has been taken on their request. So I'm going to approve this request. I'm going to say this request is good. I feel comfortable with the time off, the current balance. I'm certain that nothing is going to change with the hours, so we won't have to make any corrections later. And so I'm going to click the approve button. You get a notice saying, are you sure you want to approve this request? Yes, I am. And then the absence request was successfully approved. Now it brings me back to this pending page that I'd gone into, and now since that was the only request I had, and I approved it, now there's nothing else for me to approve here on this page. I'm done approving for this payroll. If there had been more, because I have several employees reporting to me and several requests have been submitted, you go ahead then and you would just click into each of them, approve, deny, or push them back. Whenever you take the action, they disappear from the list, and then you get down to the no results to display option. So that's when you know that you're done and you're ready to go. The supervisors can also view for their employees the absence request history and the absence balances screen, just like the employees can view it for themselves. So they can view it for all of the folks that are reporting to them. That would be main menu, manager self-service, time management, view time, and then here's the two screens again, absence request history and absence balances. Again, what I would do is navigate to these one time, save them to your favorites, and then that way you don't have to navigate every single time. They would just be listed under the favorites and you could just go right there. Pardon me. So when you go to the absence request history page, it brings up all the employees reporting to the particular supervisor that's signed in. So I'm signed in as myself right now. If I want to view a particular employee's absence requests that they've submitted, I would go ahead and I've been picking on Sheila, so I'm going to go into her. So you just select the employee you wish to view. And you can see here, here's the absence request history for Sheila. The screen looks exactly the same as it did when Sheila looked at it for herself. Here are the requests. Here are the statuses of those requests. I can go in and take a look at them because maybe I'm wondering if maybe I think Sheila already submitted a request for a certain period of time or a certain day or something like that, and so I want to take a look at what she's got going on, or I want to see what she's submitted for the future or the past or whatever. That's what you would use this screen for. The same way an employee would use it for themselves, the supervisor can take a look at what the employee has been submitting for their leave requests. You view them just like you would view them when the employee went into them. So that's what this screen is here, and it just gives you further detail on what that request is and what the status is. So that's the absence request history screen. The absence balances screen. Again, I as the supervisor would select the person that I want to view their absence balances. I would click the select button, and then again, the screen looks exactly like it did when Sheila brought it up for herself. I now get to see Sheila's current sick and annual leave balances that she has. And if I want to forecast for her, I can also forecast on her behalf. And I can see what she needs to use by December 31st, or by a scheduled outage she has. She's got surgery in September, so I want to see what her sick leave balance is going to be in September when she takes that time off, or whatever it is. So I can also forecast in addition to the employee being able to forecast for themselves. The last thing I want to show you before I open it up for questions on the supervisor side is the delegation process. So if the supervisor wants to delegate the ability to approve leave requests to someone else, that's what this screen is for that I'm going to show you. So that is under Main Menu, Self-Service, Manage Delegation. The supervisor needs to be the one to go in to initiate this process. Someone else can't initiate the delegation request for them. The supervisor has to say, I am logging in and I want to delegate to someone else. So you go create a delegation request, and then it gives you from and to dates for the delegation. If I want to delegate forevermore to someone, so from today onward and forevermore, I would leave the to date blank. But if I as a supervisor usually like to do it, but I'm going on vacation for a week, then I would just put the from and the to dates to be just for that week of span time, and then it would revert back to me when I get back to vacation, from vacation, or whatever it was. I'm going to leave this open-ended, and I'm going to click the next button. And the button to approve for this, or to select for this, is the Manager Absence Approve. I as a supervisor am going to delegate my ability to approve absences to someone else. So I would check that button and click Next. And then here are all the people within my hierarchy that I can delegate to. So I can delegate to people above me, I can delegate to people that are at my same level, or I can delegate to other people that are just within my office. If I don't see a person listed here that I think I should delegate to, I can also search for them by name if I would want to do that. But I'm going to pick right now that I'm going to delegate to Kari, and I'm going to click the next button. I can only pick one person. I can't delegate to more than one person. I can only pick one for this process. So I'm delegating absences to Kari to approve for me. I click the next button, and it gives you just a little snapshot here of what you did. It's saying you picked Kari from today, and you didn't put an end date, and the Manage Absence Approve is the transaction that you chose, and then you'd click the Submit button. Once you click Submit, Kari, or whoever it is that you've picked, gets an email. And that email says you have a delegation request that is pending. If Kari doesn't answer that delegation request and go in and accept it and say, yes, I will do this for this person, it will not go anywhere, and the original supervisor is still the one that has to go ahead and do the approving. Until Kari or that delegate goes in and accepts it, it's still sitting with that supervisor's responsibilities. So that's the supervisor manager side of the absence requests. Are there questions on that process, any of that I can answer for anyone?
In the manual, it talks about an absence on behalf of an employee.
Yes.
When would you do that, or?
That would have to be very extenuating circumstances if the employee happened to be out for a long period of time, and it's not going to be convenient for them. They had a sudden illness or something where they're not going to be able to do the absence request. It's not something that we want to do as a common practice, because we shouldn't be submitting things on behalf of the employee. But if there was an extenuating rare circumstance that would require, for whatever reason, they're going to be out for an extended time and you'd want to be doing requests for that employee, that would be the situation where you'd use that.
And the other question I have, would the system allow somebody to request the same days off twice? You know, if they didn't go and look at their history and they
What
forgot
it
to
will-
say-
Well, kind of. So if you've done a partial day, let's say you're out for 2 hours in the morning for a dentist appointment, and then you're out 3 hours in the afternoon because you took annual leave. So if you're doing 2 partial day requests on the same day, it will allow it to go through. But if you've done a full day request and then you try to do the request again for that same day, or you've done a full request and then you try to do a partial or something, it will not let that happen. It will give you a warning saying you've already put in a request for that day. Or if maybe you did a partial day for 5 hours and then you try to do a partial day for another 5 hours on that same day, and you only have an 8-hour schedule, it won't let that happen either. It will only let you do partial days on the same day up to an 8-hour day or a 10-hour day, whatever your schedule is set up for. It won't allow it to go over that.
Did
Now, this
did
is-
you say at the very beginning that you guys will send out a generic email that lets us know, you know, the end of the pay period or the payroll is going to run?
Yep, we will be sending emails out saying by X date, please make sure that you've logged into approved requests.
Okay, good deal. That'll help things a lot too.
When an employee, yeah, I have one. When an employee puts in a comment, that comment is not a confidential. That comment also shows up on the supervisor's
Correct.
form, right?
Yes, the comments field is not a hidden field. So if the employee makes a comment on there or the supervisor makes a comment on there, it is viewable by both people. However, leave requests themselves are a closed record, so it wouldn't be if we got an open records request from someone else other than the supervisor and the employee, that's not something that would be viewable to them or to anyone outside of that. But yeah, comments are viewable by both the employee and the supervisor.
So if both the supervisor and the supervisor's supervisor have authority to approve, so for us, that's our director is supervisor of everyone. The director would be able to approve anybody's leave without any delegation.